Welcome to Moose on the Loose, your source of uncorrupt media. My name's David. Today, we've got a real zinger for you. Justin Trudeau goes into a full rage in the House of Commons. Believe it or not, he's actually back at work today. I guess there's no women's hockey games on, is there?
Mr. Speaker, our priorities are clear. We're going to axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Stop the auto theft that has run rampant under this Prime Minister. He's now throwing a cape over his back, claiming that he's the hero on auto theft, but it's actually tripled in Toronto, and it's up by 100% in Montreal after he brought in catch and release and house arrest for car thieves, and after his incompetence allowed our ports to spin out of control and our cars to be exported to overseas crime and terror networks. Why doesn't he reverse his policies instead of another meeting?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this is a serious situation. Canadians are concerned about this, and the Conservative leader just chooses to whip out his empty slogans and continue to blame everyone while we're getting to work. We're pulling together stakeholders and leaders from across the government to look at what more we can do. We've seen successes. CBSA agents have intercepted over 1,600 stolen cars last year in 2023, but there's more to do. We're going to continue to make the steady work and investments necessary to keep Canadians safe and to keep crime down.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Keep crime down. Crime is way up. Violent crime is up 40% under this Prime Minister. And today he had his ministers hold a big press conference as their solution. And in it, they put out a press release that said, and I quote, "In 2022, approximately 9,600 vehicles were stolen in the Toronto area alone, representing a 300% increase since 2015. End quote. What happened in 2015? I know, he happened, Mr. Speaker. How can we make him unhappen and stop the crime?
Speaker, in 2015, Stephen Harper presented a budget that had slashed funds for policing, slashed funds for CBSA officers, slashed funding for Veterans Affairs Services, and we were there to clean up the mess, to cut taxes for the wealthiest 1%, lower them for the middle class, to support families, to start moving forward on gun control in real ways while the Conservatives cozy up to the American gun lobbies. We've continued to step up and keeping Canadians safe. Let them bring assault weapons back to our streets. We'll keep Canadians safe.
Trudeau's drama performance there, man, just really gets in there. The hands are moving. There's so much fake passion. It's just... it looked a lot like what he was doing at that women's hockey game. Believe it or not, later in this House of Commons session, he rages even harder.
Wow, is he ever losing control of himself? Oh my goodness. Screaming and hollering like that. Mr. Speaker, it's his press release that says that in Toronto, auto thefts are up 300% since he took office. His solution is to hold a summit. He held a summit on food prices. Food prices went up. He held a summit on housing. Housing costs doubled. How much is crime going to rise after all the bigwigs go to his summit?
Yeah, if you're not aware, a lot of the vehicles in Canada are being shipped out. They're stolen, they're put into train cars, then they're shipped out to Dubai and Africa, and they're sold in those countries, and you'll never see them ever again. And there's a guy who put an air tag in his car. He found it. He got charged by going into the rail yard, and the rail car took off, went to Montreal. His car was never seen again, and it popped up eventually in Dubai.
Speaker, the Leader of the Opposition has trouble believing that we would actually include real facts in our press release, something he and the Harper government never did for years. Yes, Mr. Speaker, there is a real challenge around auto theft in this country, and our solution is to roll up our sleeves, pull together partners from across the country, and get to solving it. His solution, throw his hands up in the air, blame a raft of political attacks on us, and continue to see that he's not putting forward any real solutions, Mr. Speaker.
Only thing Trudeau does is blames Harper. Like that, we're talking 10 years ago. 10 years ago. Really? Was the world a different place 10 years ago? I'm pretty sure it was catastrophically different. Yeah, it's not working, Trudeau. Nobody believes you. Nobody trusts you.
Prime Minister needs a summit to find out about the problem of auto theft. We can help him. He is the problem. It was his policies that caused the 300% increase in auto theft in Toronto, and he's asked for solutions. Well, we have some of those too. Will the Prime Minister agree to reverse his catch and release bail policy for car thieves, end house arrest for those who steal cars, and put an end to his incompetence at the Port of Montreal, from which so many of our vehicles are being shipped to organized crime and terrorist networks abroad?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, what's interesting about the Leader of the Opposition is he doesn't actually care about auto theft. He cares about making a good political attack on the government because people are facing real challenges. What we are focused on is solving the challenges.
Yeah.
What we are focused on is initiatives like we announced today of $121 million to fight auto theft in Ontario. We've been working to bring together stakeholders and leaders across the country to bring forward more positive solutions to build on the 1,600 recovered autos that we prevented from being stolen last year.
Trudeau just like, he's just full of lies. Just ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh. The more he does the ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, the more he is really scrambling his brain for something.
I've already responded to the concerns on car theft, but the Leader of the Opposition wants to talk about common sense and crime and violence. Why is he listening to the American gun lobby, which wants to bring back assault-style rifles to our streets and to our communities? Each stage of the last 8 years, he's tried to block our gun control measures because he is being controlled by the American gun lobby instead of standing up to protect communities and control guns and demonstrate that he really is concerned about Canadian safety and security.
He just loves bringing that up, like, oh, you're controlled by the gun lobbies, you're controlled, like, give me a break, man. The gun laws in Canada, plus the gun culture in Canada, is so much different than what's in America. It's just 100% different. He is trying his absolute best to try to paint Pierre Poilievre as some MAGA Trump guy and scare voters away from him and not to vote for him. That's all he's got left. That is all he's got left. Just look for it. Throughout the coming months, he's just going to keep pushing that MAGA. They'll keep bringing up Tucker Carlson, etc. And if he ever has some sort of meeting with Trump, he'll blow that up endlessly.
Not only is he not worth the cost, he's not worth the crime, and now he's spreading disinformation. Years after he promised he was going to ban these so-called military assault rifles, they're still legal in Canada. And he's paying foreign hunters to get into helicopters and fly around over Vancouver Island to slaughter deer that our hunters would have taken down for free for the meat. When will this Prime Minister stop his policy of targeting lawful Canadians and go after the real criminals that are terrorizing our streets?
That is very true. I have an entire video on that. I take personal offense in that whole situation. I live on Vancouver Island, and there's been some updates on that. So apparently most of that meat, or a good portion of it, was supposed to go to First Nations. But it turns out those snipers they had in that helicopter, the weapon they were using was, I don't know if it's too powerful or the exit strength of it or whatever, but it basically exploded too much of the meat and it wasted a bunch of those animals. You can't hunt from a helicopter in Canada. You can't use those weapons in Canada. And they did it in the park. But then also nobody got the meat, and they wasted $835,000, something like that. I've personally made around 100 hiking videos on Vancouver Island. It is the safest place on earth to hike. If you want to look up a hiking trail and know what it looks like, if that's up to your skill set or not, I have more videos than anywhere else. And I've asked for government funding over and over and over. They don't even respond to me. Yet if you look at the search and rescue numbers, Vancouver Island since COVID is the only place that the numbers have gone down. It's pretty simple to look at the number that the one place that has the most visual beta, the most information on the hikes, is the one where people are deciding, oh, actually that hike's too hard for me, let's go do another one. And thus there's less search and rescues going on. This government won't even cough up a few bucks to help me doing this for free. They won't even respond to my emails, yet they'll spend $835,000 to go butcher a bunch of deer people would have done for free. This government is just full of bonehead idiots.
The contortions the leader of the official opposition goes through to try and talk about gun control are quite impressive, Mr. Speaker, but Canadians will not be fooled by him. The order in council that made assault weapons illegal to use, to purchase, or to share or sell is still in place. The Conservative Party of Canada has as its official position that it wants to restore the legality of assault-style weapons in this country.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Mr. Speaker, he stumbles and bumbles when he does not know what he's talking about, and he does not know what he's talking about because he does not care what he's talking about. He still has not banned those guns. Years after promising on the election trail that he did, they are still legally in the possession of their owners at this stage, and he says he won't be able to do it until a week after the next election. Meanwhile, he tried to publish 300 pages of hunting rifles that he wanted to ban, blaming First Nations hunters for crime in downtown Toronto. Why does he want to protect turkeys from hunters instead of Canadians from criminals?
Pierre is just crushing him. One rebuttal after the other. It's just...
Mr. Speaker, as of a number of years ago, it is illegal to buy, sell, or use or bequeath military-style or assault-style weapons in this country. We did that. We banned over 1,600 models of assault-style weapons. The Conservative Party wants to make those assault-style weapons legal again. And everything they do is focused on misinformation and disinformation of bringing in hunters who are not targeted by these measures to try and justify their anchoring on the NRA.
This guy. Bequeath, what a word. Only the shiny pony himself would use that word.
He's wearing liberal red, of course. I call him the shiny pony.
More stumbling and bumbling, Mr. Speaker. The guns he talked about are not banned. And he says they will not be banned until 1 week after the next election because he cannot figure out how to ban them, years after he announced it. Meanwhile, he's spending billions of dollars going after licensed, law-abiding, trained and tested people who've proven that they are statistically the least likely to commit crime. And what has been the consequence? In 8 years, we've had a 100% increase in criminal shootings. Why does he always go after the good guys instead of putting the bad guys in jail?
Yeah, crime has really skyrocketed since Trudeau came in, his whole catch and release. There's like a few guys, a handful, 50, 60 people in Vancouver that get arrested multiple times per day. It ends up thousands of arrests per year, the same 50, 60 guys committing crimes all day long. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Mr. Speaker, in May of 2020, we rendered it illegal to buy or sell or use or bequeath 1,600 different models of assault-style weapons in this country. That is still the case, Mr. Speaker. In the coming year, we will be bringing in an amnesty program. Legacy program. We're extending the amnesty to be able to bring in a buyback for the owners of these weapons. But we are moving forward on gun control when he wants to bring assault-style weapons back to Canadians.
He's slipping up. He's just losing it here. He's not. I think the Emergencies Act situation there with the judge is really affected him. He seems like he's really off his fake drama game.
Prime Minister has hit Canadian farmers with a carbon tax that drives up food prices at the grocery store. Food prices that are rising again only months after he promised they would come down. I asked him late last year if he would talk to the Medeiros farm about their rising carbon tax bill. They just got their bill for December, and it is $21,000 in carbon taxes alone. I ask now, as I asked back then, how exactly will the Medeiros family pay this bill when it quadruples to over $80,000 a year?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
It's interesting that the Conservative leader is asking the government to help out the Medeiros family farm now, because back in 2014, when the Medeiros fan came to him in government, asked him for some support as they were trying to make investments, trying to continue to move forward, he told them that they needed to stand on their own 2 feet. That's what he told that farm. Mr. Speaker, we are there to support farmers right across the country with $1.5 billion over the past few years in investments, in supports. We're going to continue to be there for farmers as they fight climate change.
As they fight climate change, and he gets that cut off. You can see he's getting his little worker bees to come up with all the tiniest little things to try to fight against Pierre Poilievre, digging up everything in his past.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Actually, when the Medeiros family asked for me for help, I went to ENRAGED and helped them get lower-cost natural gas to power their operation, Mr. Speaker. That's the real story. So instead of reading the disinformation from the kids in short pants over in PMO, why doesn't he deal with the thing that's really hurting that family right now? A $21,000 monthly carbon tax bill that is passed on to the trucker who ships the food and the grocer who sells the food. So once again, how much will Canadians have to pay in higher food prices when he quadruples the carbon tax?
Kids in short pants. Pierre's pretty funny. He really has a lot of good zingers. Makes for entertaining politics, that's for sure. It's crazy. He mentions almost a different farm all the time. There's the Carleton mushroom farm. That one was the $16,000 in carbon tax. There's so many different farms, but it's just unreal to think farmers got to spend 20 grand in carbon tax. It's like, dude, these are people literally keeping us alive. Like, that's an insult to farmers anywhere across the world, let alone especially here in Canada. Like, we should be propping these people up as heroes as they are.
Speaker, back in 2014, he told that farm family to stand on their own 2 feet. We, Mr. Speaker, know what is making farmers vulnerable across this country. Do you know what it is, Mr. Speaker? It's climate change.
Oh, here we go.
The fact that a change in climate causes droughts, floods, and fires, droughts, floods, and fires.
This guy's too busy thinking about that women's hockey game.
End up hurting crops, end up hurting growers. That's why we're stepping up on fighting climate change. Farmers across this country know how important it is to sustain and protect our land. That's exactly what we're doing. That's exactly what we're going to continue to do.
Kindly, Justin Trudeau, how about you and Chrystia Freeland and all your 55 supporters? We'll cut you off a nice little piece of land at the top of Baffin Island. You guys can go live up there and live your climate dreams up there.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He mentions drugs. That's another crisis that he has caused, Mr. Speaker. But back to the cost of food, heat, and groceries. This Prime Minister plans to raise the carbon tax again on April 1st. Another hike to the gas, the heat, the grocery bills. Another hit to the Nova Scotia families who can't afford to pay their utility bills. And another hit to working class families while he jets around the world carbon tax free. If he can't have the common sense to axe the tax, will he at least cancel his plan to hike the tax on April 1st?
The Leader of the Opposition is proposing to cut for Canadians. Tax that Canadians get in price on pollution is in place that they are relying on to enable them to both fight climate change and support their families. We are going to continue to be there to fight climate change and put more money in the pockets of 8 out of 10 Canadian families. When he talks about cutting climate action, he's also talking about cutting those checks that arrive in families' bank accounts 4 times a year.
That's so funny. The Conservatives are awesome. He's going to cut taxes. I've noticed the talking points. If you go across all the Liberals, they have these caucus meetings and they have like they try to come up with these points that they all need to align on. Make sure we mention the rebate checks they get. So like that's what they're doing now. He mentioned that just now, the check you'll get back, and you won't get that check. It's like they're trying to make a threat on that. Chrystia Freeland had the exact same comment yesterday in the House of Commons. I've noticed a couple other Liberals making the exact same comments. They're really trying to like scare people to, you won't get that $1,000 from us. Meanwhile, they're using the highest number, that $1,000 they're rounding up, which is 900 and what is it, 990, 930, something like that. It's basically if you have a family of 4 and you're in poverty, then you'll get the highest amount, which is the 900 and something dollars. Most people get max $300. And really, I think a majority of people are getting way less than that. Don't be fooled by this stupid nonsense.
The Parliamentary Budget Officer, the average 60% of Canadians are paying more in his carbon tax than they get back in rebates. And now we learn that 40% of Nova Scotia households are struggling to pay their electricity bills. The carbon tax, of course, applies on the share of electricity that is generated through traditional hydrocarbons and other fossil fuels, Mr. Speaker. The Prime Minister is going to hit Canadians with yet another tax hike on April the 1st. Will he, if he can't summon the common sense to axe the tax, will he at least cap the tax so Canadians can afford to eat?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
No, he won't.
Speaker, we are fighting climate change and creating a stronger economy at the same time as we ensure affordability for Canadians.
Let me just talk about that real briefly here. If he really wanted to solve climate change or fight it or whatever, the best way to do that is to have a national program that plants trees, that plants abundant amounts of trees. We have basically more land than any other country on earth except for Russia. If we went and planted more and more trees, especially here I had a video just a couple ago talking about the mass deforestation clear cuts on Vancouver Island. If they really wanted to fight climate change and take carbon out, they would plant insane amounts of trees. How many trees have been planted since Trudeau got in office? He doesn't care about climate change. This is all a big scam.
Those carbon rebate checks that go right across
There's the checks
country
again.
in areas where the federal price applies help out 8 out of 10 families with more money than they pay in the price on pollution. We will continue to be there to both invest in families, to support them, while the Conservative leader proposes to cut rebate checks to Canadians.
There it is.
We're going to keep doing it while we fight climate change.
He's threatening with the checks again.
The honourable member
Don't listen to that nonsense.
Mr. Speaker, my question is to the Prime Minister on our support for Ukraine. Ensuring Ukraine's victory is vital to Canada's security. Ukraine must win. Otherwise, Europe, the U.S., and Canada will be next in defending ourselves against Russia's aggression. Can the Prime Minister assure Canadians that this government will stand with the Ukrainian people until they win, until we all win?
I noticed the Liberals started doing this more. If you watch the entire thing, this thing is like, it's long, it's an hour and a half, but the Liberals are now asking more questions to the Liberals. It's basically other Liberals asking Trudeau questions. I don't know if they're just trying to pad it and try to fill it. It's ridiculous and embarrassing. Like this guy, this Liberal guy asking Trudeau, will we support Ukraine?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Centre is right. Before the holidays, Canadians all witnessed the Leader of the Opposition forcing his caucus to turn their back on Ukraine. They turned their backs on fundamental Canadian principles and bowed down to the pro-Russian narrative. I know the Leader won't change his mind, but Ukrainian Canadians across the prairies are hoping that at least some brave Conservative MPs will do the right thing and vote their conscience and their principles. Let everyone in this House who stands with Ukraine stand up and be counted.
Come on, Trudeau, man. Take that to Hollywood, man. He's sitting there reading a script, and then he just turns on the juice. Ooh, 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 ooh. It's like Planet of the Apes, man. Come on.
Mr. Speaker, what this Prime Minister has is a pro-Russia energy policy that forces the Europeans to buy their energy from Russia by denying Canadians the ability to sell our own. He prefers military equipment for Putin instead of paychecks for Canadians. He does want to export detonators and turbines to Putin so he can pump his gas and power his landmines. Why doesn't he stop using Ukraine as a political tool and actually do something to stand up and help win the war?
Pierre's coming out swinging, man. He's got the gloves off, and the shiny pony just can't. He's got no chance.
The shiny pony is a stallion.
Volodymyr Zelensky came to this House and asked all of us to support Ukraine in its fight for freedom and and its economic independence. Vladimir Zelensky asked us to support a renegotiation and a renewal of the Canada-Ukraine free trade deal. In this House, everyone except Conservative MPs stood up to support Vladimir Zelensky.
The Prime Minister has 10 seconds left on the clock. I'm going to ask all
Things
members,
getting heated in here.
particularly the member from Dufferin-Caledon, please, to allow the answer to be heard. Important for
What is this, like grade 2?
to hear that, but it's important for members, especially members who require translation.
Mr. Speaker, Ukrainian Canadians from across the prairies are begging their MPs to please stand up for Ukraine. Will they do that, Mr. Speaker, in the upcoming Ukraine free trade vote?
Speaker, on this, like everything else, he is a fake and he is a phony.
They muted it. They muted it. So corrupt. Uh-oh. They gotta have a little chat about this. Gotta talk to the umpire here. Was it across the plate? Is it a good ball? What? Strike? What is it? Is it a good goal? What is it?
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition is a well-experienced man in Parliament. I would caution him to avoid using language like that could cause disruption and could be interpreted differently.
So just to be clear here, he's not allowed to call him a liar. So he called him a phony and a fake. Pierre Poilievre is very smart. He knows all the rules and he's within his rules, but he's kind of bending them a bit.
Honourable member from the top, the Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
His carbon tax deal does not distract from the fact that he announced $400 million in surface-to-air equipment that he has still not delivered. Right. What he did deliver is detonators to Putin so that Putin could put them in landmines and blow up Ukrainians. He delivered a turbine that was refurbished in Montreal so that Putin could put it in his pipelines and pump gas and make money off Europe that we should be bringing home to this country. Why is it that he always stands up for the dirty dictators like Putin instead of the paychecks for our people?
Pierre's just slugging him here. Trudeau doesn't even have a chance, even with his pink boxing gloves.
I heard he wanted to use the pink boxing gloves, but that was vetoed by the Sun News Network.
Mr. Speaker, when the Leader of the Opposition refers to Ukraine as some faraway foreign land, when he continues to insist that all of his MPs, including Ukrainian Canadian MPs, vote against a free trade agreement that Volodymyr Zelensky is asking us to vote for to support Ukraine, he can't hide behind the kind of misinformation and disinformation that he regularly peddles in. It's very simple, Mr. Speaker. Will the members of the Conservative...
So I'm going to remind all members again. I know it's Wednesday, and I know that all members, but as I had
It's spicy in here today.
As to the same degree that I just made a statement to a member in this House, I will make it again. Please be I would invite all members to please listen to their whips for a second, and I will... Can
you have them sit down when you're up? Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, he could not point to a single thing that I said that was untrue because it is all factual. It is a fact that we already have an excellent trade agreement with Ukraine, that it does not include a carbon tax, and that there is no need for a carbon tax to be in any free trade agreement. In fact, there never has been a need for a carbon tax in any other free trade agreement in the history. But while he remembered a carbon tax, he forgot to include in the deal a ban on him sending detonators and turbines over to Putin. Why is it that he's so determined to allow Putin to acquire weapons and money rather than having a real free free trade deal with Ukraine.
He has really flipped that one around on Trudeau. The shiny pony is backed into the corner, and he's not getting out of this one.
Mr. Speaker, the leader of the official opposition has an opportunity to correct the record from him having called Ukraine a faraway foreign land by allowing his Ukrainian Canadian MPs, at the very least, to vote in favor of the renewal of the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Agreement coming up for a vote in the coming days. It is an opportunity for those who choose to stand with Ukraine to stand with Ukraine in this House and be counted. Why is he muzzling his Ukrainian Canadian MP?
Mr. Speaker, we are 100% united in our support of Ukraine and in our opposition to the carbon tax. This is what he does. He divides. He wants to distract from the fact that he doubled housing costs, caused 30 homeless encampments in Halifax, caused shootings to go up by 100%, drug overdoses up by 300%. It is no wonder that he would want to use fear and falsehoods to distract from his many failures, and that is exactly what he is doing. Why won't he finally unite this country instead of trying to divide and conquer?
Ladies and gentlemen, our next Prime Minister right there. Just give it a year or two, unfortunately.
Mr. Speaker, this House used to be united in its unequivocal support for Ukraine, and then the Leader of the Opposition disparagingly referred to Ukraine as a faraway foreign land, something for which he has not yet apologized, and has demanded that all his MPs, including Prairie MPs who have strong Ukrainian-Canadian populations, vote against a free trade deal that Volodymyr Zelensky has deliberately and directly asked Canadians to support. When will he stand up for Ukraine?
When will you stand up for Canada, Justin? Jeez, this guy is like the worst. He is the worst of the worst. He will go down as the worst Prime Minister in Canadian history. How many centuries will that record stand? Probably many.
Rent is down for the 8th consecutive month in the United States. Right. Meanwhile, it has more than doubled. Why is rent going down in the States while it skyrockets under his leadership here at home?
I'd like to give the Leader of the Opposition another opportunity to apologize for referring to Ukraine as disparagingly as a faraway foreign land.
That's it!
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, the question was about rent in Canada. Rent prices have doubled after 8 years of this Prime Minister. They have tripled in his home city of Montreal. Construction numbers will actually plummet this year relative to the prior years. Will the Prime Minister finally accept a common sense plan to build the homes so Canadians can afford the rent?
Unbelievable. Trudeau's response is just, I'll give you another opportunity to apologize. Like, what a just childish, worthless Prime Minister.
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, once again, I didn't hear an apology to Ukrainians. I encourage him to do that. People are waiting for it. At the same time, Mr. Speaker, I can remind this House that we have signed dozens of Housing Accelerator Fund agreements across the country that are leading to the construction of hundreds of thousands of new homes in the coming years.
Hundreds of thousands of homes in the coming years, yet you're bringing in 1.2 million people this year. You do the math. Somebody slap this guy with a dead fish.
But again, I encourage the Leader of the Opposition to apologize for referring to Ukraine as some faraway foreign land.
That little faraway foreign land comment is like his last-ditch hope. That and the threatening Canadians to take away their $200 they get at the end of the year for carbon tax.
Mr. Speaker, it just proves that what I said earlier. He's not interested in Ukraine. When I asked about rental prices, he started spreading disinformation about Ukraine. He couldn't care less about the war effort over there. He only cares about distracting from his failures at home.
This House, for well over 150 years, has been here to recognize the debates and follow what people have been doing. And if he is suggesting that Hansard, the official record of this House in which he said Ukraine is a faraway foreign land, is somehow misinformation or disinformation, well, he should come right out and say so.
In terms of housing, we continue to invest across the country, including in Quebec. Quebec is doubling the $900 million we put forth for housing to help housing creation.
What a disgraceful man Trudeau is. Just the worst of the worst. One thing I typically trim out of these videos, every time the Bloc talks, all they complain about is how there's too many immigrants coming into Quebec and it's making things unaffordable. The jobs, the houses, everything. That's the only thing they ever talk about. And it's just real rich to hear Trudeau talk about what they're doing for Quebec when really the Bloc always only complains about that.
The Conservatives' plan is eliminating dental care for Canadians. Dental care that has already helped 400,000 children.
That dental program, just if you're aware, it was rolled out for kids and people 87 or older. It's not generally available. It's like I haven't been to the dentist in like 10 years. It's like I can't go to the dentist and get my teeth checked. It's such a dumb. They keep using that dental program, which is the NDP's program, by the way. The Liberals like to take credit for it. They didn't want to put that in, and even what they put in is pathetic. It's like barely anyone can use it.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Rent, and instead he turned and made false attacks against me. Apparently I'm living rent-free in his head. Here's the reality. Rent is going down in the States while it's coming up in Canada. Housing costs have risen 40% faster than the incomes of Canadians, the worst record in the G7, and the second worst in the OECD. If the Prime Minister's plan were really working, why is it that housing costs have doubled and our housing is becoming less affordable than almost any developed country in the world?
I think I'm going to leave aside the question of where exactly he's living rent-free and focus on...
This coming from a guy who's got multiple vacation homes. He built an extra vacation home. They already had one for the Prime Minister. He built another one for himself. And he lives in Rideau Hall and the $8 million barn. Let's just look at where Pierre Poilievre lives. So the leader of the opposition gets to live in, what's it called? Stornoway? It's this place here. It's hardly a mansion. It's got nice landscaping. You know, it's a big house, but it's not like some huge palace. Like, give me a break, man. There's houses down the street from where I live here that are bigger than this house, a lot bigger.
Whether it's cutting the GST from purpose-built rental, whether it's moving forward with a tax-free savings account for first-time homebuyers, whether it's putting $4 billion in the pockets of municipalities across the country to increase density, to cut red tape, we are taking action on housing.
That's embarrassing, dude. Tax-free savings account, like, give me a break. Does anyone know a Canadian that's saving for a first house, so say age 20 to 25 to 30, etc., that has right now, what's the average house price? Something like $600,000, $800,000, something like that. $40,000 for a 5% down, but then you'd have CHMC to avoid the insurance on your mortgage. You'd have to have like $160,000 down payment. Yeah, that tax-free savings account's really gonna get you there soon. A Canadian serving for a first home will have to save for 30 years. That's how bad it is in Canada right now.
He does a lot to increase housing costs. Rents have doubled, mortgage has doubled.
Trudeau has completely lost his mind at this point. He's become unhinged. He's become angry. We're not buying it, shiny pony. We're not buying it. I'll continue to keep you guys informed here. If you're looking for something a little bit more chill, I have a silent hiking channel if you want to check that out, or some more Trudeau madness. I'll put it here. Be sure to subscribe. I'll see you guys on the next one.